Greeting Slackers is July 7th, 2016, and I'm over here with some new news from the Washington Post. Don't know if you heard about this article, but I want to share with you because there were some things in it that we can expand upon. And it goes on to state here the real reason so many millennials are living at home. And this is by Ben St. Clair. Goes on to say here last month, a Pew Research Center report grabbed a lot of attention for saying that for the first time since 1880, young adults ages 18 to 34 are more likely to live with a parent than in any other arrangement. But a new analysis by Pew shows that the trend isn't being driven primarily, at least, by a common stereotype, that of the recent college grad who hasn't found their first job. In reality, behind the trend are older millennials, particularly those without college degrees, who are living at home in unprecedented numbers. Now, it remains true that the youngest adults are still the most likely to live with their parents. Half of them do, according to Pew, up from 46% a decade ago. But Pew also found that 25% of people ages 25 to 29 live with a parent, up from 18% a decade ago, and 13% of people ages 30 to 34, up from 9%. The living arrangements reflect not only the growing trend of delaying marriage, but also larger economic factors that are keeping these millennials at home. Pew's Richard Fry argues that a challenging job market, particularly for young men, is a major factor driving the trend. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that 5.7% of men ages 25 to 34 are unemployed, a full percentage point lower than older men. Fry's analysis of census data shows that 36% of older millennials without jobs live with their parents, compared with 18% of employed men. Education is also a big part of the story. Fry's analysis shows that just 15% of older millennial men with a college degree live with their parents, compared to 26% with only a high school degree. Poor job prospects may be making young men less desirable for marriage. And that's a point that I want to home in on as I will come back to it. Fry says, since most women look for men with a steady job, but older millennial women are also living at home in bigger numbers. Overall, a $17,000 earnings gap between college educated and high school educated adults aged 25 to 32. The high cost of housing may play an additional role, with homeownership rates of those under 35 at a 20-year low. Many more may be looking to rent, but as rents rise faster than wages, the rental housing market may also be keeping millennials from moving out of their parents' homes. A recent study by Zillow found a small correlation between rent costs in 2016 and the percent of 24 to 34-year-olds living with their parents in 2014. The study also found that the percentage of older millennials living at home increased in each of the metropolitan areas from 2005 to 2014. Instead, in the past 2 years, the data has been available. 19% of 25 to 34-year-olds in metropolitan areas have been living at home, the largest rate since 1940. These trends could have larger implications for future economic growth and financial stability, as housing represents over 60% of assets held by the middle class and roughly 15% of gross domestic product. Since the share of 25 to 34-year-olds living with a parent has been steadily rising since reaching its lowest point 45 years ago, it may be years until we experience the full significance of these new living arrangements with its potential impact on the economy, though it's a trend we may not be able to ignore. What I wanted to jump in on and come back to was, let's find it here. And this is about marriage. Poor job prospects may be making young men less desirable for marriage. Well, it is true that women should not even be thinking about marriage or, really considering that unless they can partner up with someone who can help to maintain and sustain a household. I fully agree with that. Typically, women will not, if they're smart, choose a man who's not able to provide and take care of a home. Now, at the same time, I do understand that the economics at this time are pretty rough. It's been pretty bad out there. I follow a lot of news. I read economic reports. I also talk to people on the street. The job market is a challenge. I used to be in Southern California, and I remember for the period between 2009 and 2011, I was sending out resume after resume after resume and application after application after application, and I wasn't getting any calls back whatsoever. When there was a time just before that, and let's just say this period is between 2000 and 2007 ish, you could put your resume out there and you could have multiple offers, and have your pick of the jobs. Now, this does play on skills in the background that you have and relative work experience. But at the same time, the job market has contracted. I don't think that our politicians and especially the president is being genuine when he says that the economy is on a track to recovery when they've already stated that, for instance, the growth period between the first quarter of this year and the second quarter of this year showed a physical contraction. They need to be creating, um, what is it, roughly 100,000 jobs per month just to keep up with the so-called recovery, indicating that the job market is growing, people are going back to work, and when people go back to work, they get money. When they get money, they might get a relationship. If they get into a relationship, that might evolve into a marriage. If they get married, they may end up having children, and so if they have children, well, they're going to need a home, which is a roof over their head and a place to stay. But the cost of housing has not come down. I'm someone who takes a look at real estate as well. Being someone who's previously owned real estate, I know what it is to jump out there and, struggle, especially with mortgage rates being at all time lows. But if the cost of a home is not there relative to the amount of money that you make, why jump into that struggle? And this is where a lot of people are saying, forget it. I'll move back home. I'll, live in the basement with my parents and stuff like that. So I fully understand the dynamics that are going on out here. But, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this in regards to the economy? Are you someone who's affected by this job market? Are you someone that still lives at home with your parents? And what are your reasons? Leave some comments down below. That's going to do it for this article, and I will catch you in the next one.